Hi guys, welcome to my channel Creatively Expressive. My name is Amy and today I have a mega video where I will be sharing 23 of my favorite projects from the year 2023. If you enjoy getting creative and DIYing, I would love it if you would consider subscribing to my channel because I have so many more ideas coming for 2024. Now let's get into my favorites and hopefully some of your favorites as well from 2023. For our first project, I'm going to be using this Valentine's Day barn-shaped sign from the Dollar Tree and these 8-inch MDF letters that I found in a bag at Goodwill, but are originally from Walmart. The first thing I'm going to do is remove the little roof area on the barn, and then I'm going to sand off that picture area of the sign that is just paper that has been glued onto the sign. Now that I have a blank canvas to work with, I'm going to use white chalk paint to paint my sign. After I've painted my sign, I went to the Silhouette Design store and purchased this chicken wire cut file for 99 cents. I took the cut file and sized it in Silhouette Design Studio to fit my sign, and then cut it out on stencil vinyl with my Silhouette Cameo 4. Now I'm going to use transfer tape and parchment paper to apply my stencil to my sign. The parchment paper keeps your stencil from sticking until you have it placed correctly on your sign. Once you have your stencil where you want it, you just pull away the parchment paper. Now that my stencil is stuck on my sign, I am going to cut away some of that excess stencil and then peel away my transfer tape. Now I'm going to paint a layer of my base color over my stencil first. Doing this helps seal in the edges of your stencil, and if you have any bleed through, it will be the same color as your sign, so you won't be able to see it. Once the white paint has dried, I am going to paint on a layer of French linen chalk paint using a small stiff bristled brush. I'm going to only apply one coat and apply it lightly to give it a distressed look. Once the French linen color has dried, I'm going to remove my stencil. Then I went on Etsy and found this cute cow cut file for $2.50 and cut it using my Silhouette Cameo 4. Then I used my transfer tape and parchment paper to adhere my cute little cow to my barn sign. And then the last step for this little sign is to reattach the roof area. I'm going to be using this Starbond super glue to do that. I love this glue because it dries so quickly but not as fast as hot glue, so you don't feel as rushed as you do when you're using the hot glue. Now this sign would be super cute as it is at this point, but I'm going to make it a part of a bigger sign. I found these 8-inch MDF H, M, and E letters in a bag at Goodwill, but these letters can be found at Walmart for about $2 each. I'm going to use black chalk paint to paint both sides of each of these letters. Once the paint is dry, I am going to dry brush each of my letters with white chalk paint. I wanted to be able to stand these letters, but since they are so thin, they are unable to stand on their own. So my solution for this was to use this 6-foot 1x4-inch piece of wood that I got from Lowe's as a base. So I'm going to cut this piece down to 28 inches long. Then I wanted to have the base for my sign match the roof on the barn. So I found this special walnut stain color that I think is a pretty close match. And I'm going to stain the 28-inch piece of wood with this color. Now I'm going to attach my letters in barn to my base. So I'm going to apply tape first to my base to help me for placement. And I'm just lining up the edges of my tape with the edges of my base. Then I am going to use this medium Starbond superglue to attach my letters. And I am trying to line up the backs of my letters with the edge of that back piece of tape. I'm going to attach my letters first and leave a space between the H and the M for the barn, which will act as the letter O. Then I remove that front piece of tape and glue on the barn just in front and between the H and the M. And now I'm going to remove the rest of my tape. I kind of glued my M slightly over that tape, which made removing the tape a little more difficult. So just be careful not to do that like I did. And once the tape is removed, our sign is complete. I absolutely love how this sign turned out, and I think it's just gorgeous. What do you guys think? I'm going to use 2 of these wooden tags that I got from Dollar Tree last summer, and I'm going to remove that cork covering from each tag, and then sand them a bit. The cork side will be the back side of my tags, and I'm going to use the back side as the front. Now I'm going to paint the fronts and the backs of the tags with black chalk paint. Once the black is dried, I'm going to brush on some Cafe Noir chalk paint, painted in random spots on the tags. And then I'm going to dip my brush in that Cafe Noir and then run my finger over the bristles to add a little splatter. This would have probably worked better with a toothbrush, but I didn't have one that I wasn't using on my teeth. So now that the tags have a dirty, distressed look, I'm going to apply some stencil vinyl. So for the first tag, I'm using that same chicken wire cut file size to fit my tag. And I'm just going to adhere that stencil using that parchment paper technique. Now I am going to paint on a layer of Mod Podge to seal in the edges of my stencil. And then when the Mod Podge is dry, I'm going to use a chip brush to brush on some white chalk paint. I'm going heavier in some areas and lighter in other areas to give it a distressed look. Then when the paint is dry, I'm going to remove my stencil. Now for the second tag, I found this cute little chicken cut file on Silhouette Design Store and added the Welcome to Our Coop to it in my Silhouette Design Studio. So I'm going to apply this stencil to my second tag. And you can see for this one, I kept the inner parts of the stencil instead of the outside because I want the majority of this tag to be white. So now that I have my stencil attached, I'm going to first apply a layer of Mod Podge over the stencil area, and then let the Mod Podge dry. Now I'm going to brush on white chalk paint, going heavier in some areas and lighter in others, and even leaving some areas not completely covered to give my tag a distressed look. And now that the paint has dried, I will remove my stencil . And I am going to stack my lighter tag over the darker one and then use a pencil just slightly under that top tag to mark the bottom of the tag so that I know where to put my glue. And then I am going to use a combination of gel super glue and hot glue to attach my two tags together. Now I'm going to make a bow for the tags using this buffalo check ribbon that I got at Michael's just after Christmas for 70% off. I don't make bows that often, so I still find it a bit confusing sometimes, and this was actually like my 10th attempt at folding it. So I'm going to leave this bead at real time so you guys can see what I'm doing. First I make a loop leaving a tail, and then I pinch the ribbon together at the bottom of my loop and twist the ribbon where I pinched it together. Now you should have the back side of your ribbon facing you, and then you'll form another loop on the opposite side, the same size as your first loop. Then pinch it and twist the ribbon again so the back side is facing you and form a second loop on the first side, slightly smaller than the first loop. and pinch that new loop in the middle. Then twist your ribbon again and form a smaller loop on the second side. Now pinch that new loop in the center with the rest. Now I use a pipe cleaner twisted around that center area to secure my bow. Now use scissors to cut a second tail and then trim off the rest of the pipe cleaner. Now I take more ribbon and I pinch the ends together and hot glue that to the back of my bow. Then wrap the ribbon around the center of the bow, cut the ribbon and pinch the end together and hot glue that end to the back of the bow. Now just cut the tails at an angle and use a lighter to seal in the ends to keep the ribbon from unraveling. Now I'm going to make a hanger with jute twine for my tags and then hot glue my bow to my tags. And now you have a cute farmhouse door tag. What do you guys think? For our first project, I will be using 3 of these wooden plaques that I bought on Amazon, these light up farm animals from Dollar Tree, and 3 of these bunny wall hangers from Dollar Tree. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the backs off of these farm animal lights because I only want the front pieces for this project. The cow and the pig fit perfectly on these 9x6 plaques, but the chicken is just a little too tall for them, but I have a simple fix for that. I'm just going to place my chicken on the plaque where I want it, hold it in place, and then turn the plaque over and use my pencil to trace the bottom of that plaque onto the back of the chicken. Now I will just use an X-Acto knife to cut along that line that I traced and cut away the extra area on the chicken. Now this step is optional. I'm just going to sand off the paper that is on the animals to make them easier to paint, but you could just paint over that if you wanted to. Once I have done that, I'm going to paint each of my animals with white chalk paint. And now I'm going to paint each of my plaques with black chalk paint. Once the black paint has dried, I'm going to very lightly dry brush white chalk paint over my plaques to make them look almost like a chalkboard. While the white paint is drying, I'm going to remove the hangers from these bunnies. I only want the hangers for this project, and I will save the bunnies for another project. Now I am placing the hangers on the backs of the plaques and using a thumbtack to mark where I need my holes to go. Then I will use my screwdriver to screw on my hangers. Once all my hangers are attached to my plaques, I am going to use some Starbond super glue to attach my animals to the fronts of my plaques. And now this project is complete. You could use these to hang kitchen towels on, your keys on, or any other lightweight item you can think of. Let me know what you guys think of this project. These farm animal wood cutouts that I got from Walmart, and 2 long signs with grooves in them that I got from the Dollar Tree. So first I sand the glitter off of my signs, and now I'm going to cut off that area at the top of the signs that have the holes in them. Now I'm going to use these jumbo craft sticks from Walmart to attach my 2 signs together. I just put a piece of painter's tape in the center of the signs to hold them together, and then I'm going to use a combination of wood glue and hot glue to glue those craft sticks to the backs of my signs. Now I'm going to use some 3/8" square dowels that I got from Lowe's and some wooden yardsticks that I got from Dollar General that are 3/4 of an inch thick to make a frame for my sign. Now I'm going to paint the sign with black chalk paint. Once the black paint has dried, I'm going to try the crackle paint technique for the very first time. So I'm going to water down some school glue a bit. I don't have exact amounts because I was just eyeballing it. But I just wanted my glue to be a little bit thinner to make it easier to brush onto my sign. And now I'm just going to brush on that watered down glue over the entire sign. Then I wait 5 to 10 minutes so the glue is tacky but not completely dry. And then I'm going to brush a layer of white chalk paint over the sign. And you're going to want to try to use as few strokes as possible. Also, something that I learned after doing this is that the spots where I went heavier with the white paint crackled more than the spots where I went lighter. Once the entire sign is covered with white paint, you can take a heat gun or a hairdryer set to a hot setting and start drying the paint. As the paint starts to dry, you will see it start to crackle. And just be careful not to hold it in one place for too long because your paint will start to bubble up. I learned this from experience. Now I'm going to paint my farm animals with black chalk paint. And once the black paint is dry, I'm going to dry brush the animals with white chalk paint. To dry brush, you just dip the brush in a little paint, then tap off the excess paint. Then you run your almost dry brush over the surface you are wanting to paint. Go lightly because you can always add more if you think you need to, but you can't take it away if you go too heavy. So now I'm going to work on my frame. Each side of the frame will have two pieces, a thinner piece, the 3/8 inch thick, and a thicker piece, the 3/4 inch thick. I'm going to stain all 8 pieces with antique wax. I just brush the wax on with a paintbrush and then wipe off the excess with a baby wipe. And then once I have stained all my frame pieces, I am going to dry brush them with white chalk paint. Now I'm going to attach all my frame pieces to my picture. So first I will use Starbond superglue to glue the thinner pieces to the top of my picture. And then I will glue the thicker frame pieces to the sides of the thinner frame pieces, being sure to line up the back edges of the frame pieces with each other. If I were to make this again, I would use something other than the garden stakes from Dollar General for my thicker pieces, because they were super wonky, which made it difficult to attach them to my sign. So just make sure you find wood that is fairly straight and not bowed like mine. Now that the frame is attached, I am going to use that same Starbond glue to attach my farm animals to the front of my sign. Now I cut out Farm Fresh out of stencil vinyl for the top of my sign, and eggs, milk, and bacon for the bottom of my sign. And then I'm going to use my parchment paper and transfer tape to attach my stencil to my sign. Once I have my stencils placed, I am going to first paint over them with a layer of Mod Podge to seal in the edges and to prevent any paint from bleeding through. After the Mod Podge has dried, I am going to paint over my stencil with black chalk paint. And then once the black paint has dried, I will remove my stencil. And once I have done that, my sign is complete. What do you guys think of this one? Using these unfinished wooden bunnies that I got from Hobby Lobby at 40% off, and for the second project I will be using the shadow box sign that I got from the Dollar Tree. The reason I'm showing everything for the first and second projects together is because I will be pairing them together for display. I will also be using a piece of gray vinyl and these Easter scrapbook papers that I got from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to remove the stickers from the bunnies, and then I'm going to position the bunnies so that they are facing each other and then trace them onto the backs of the two matching bunny scrapbook papers. Once I have traced them, I will cut them out with a pair of scissors. Then I'm going to paint the backs and sides of each bunny with the color Elephant Gray. Once the paint has dried, I am going to use Mod Podge to adhere the scrapbook papers to the fronts of the bunnies. After both bunnies have been covered with the scrapbook papers, I will go over the tops of the papers with another coat of Mod Podge to protect the paper, and then let the Mod Podge dry. Now I'm going to go through my stash of florals and find some flowers and greenery that I think will match the flowers that are on the scrapbook paper that I will be using on the next project. I am trying to match the paper from project number 2 because, like I said earlier, I will be pairing project 1 and 2 together. So I just grabbed some florals and I laid them out on my table, and I'm just playing around with them to see which ones I like best to be placed around the neck area of my bunnies. And then I will use hot glue to attach them to my bunnies. Once I have all my florals placed and glued where I like them, project number 1 is complete. But I am going to wait to show you guys the final reveal until after I've completed project number 2, so hang tight. Number 1, I will be taking the shadow box from Dollar Tree apart, and then using a razor blade to scrape the wording off of the glass. And the wording comes off pretty easily with just a little bit of pressure. Now the only thing holding that raised area to the back of the sign is a little screw, so I'm just going to remove that screw. Now I want to cover that back piece of the sign with scrapbook paper. I want to cover it with a specific area of the scrapbook paper, so I'm going to use that glass to find the area of the paper I want to use, and then trace around the glass with my pencil. Then I will cut that area out with scissors. Now, since the back of my sign will be protected by the frame and glass, I am just going to use a glue stick to attach the paper to the back of my sign. Then I will just use a screwdriver to poke a hole in that paper where that screw goes, and then put my sign back together. Now I'm going to measure that glass area of my sign, and then I found this image on Silhouette Design Store, and I will size it to fit that glass area, and then cut it out with my Silhouette Cameo 4. Then I will use transfer tape and parchment paper to place and attach that image to the front of my glass. Then just peel away that transfer tape, and this little sign is complete. And here are projects 1 and 2 together. What do you guys think? Using 3 of these white bunny signs with a wood texture on them that I found at Dollar Tree. 2 of the signs had a bit more of the brown wood peeking through, but the third one was more white. So I decided to sand the third one a bit to try to make it look a bit more like the other 2. Now I'm going to plug up the holes on the tops of those bunnies with some caulking. The way I do this is I place a piece of painter's tape over the tops of the holes on the fronts of my signs. Then I flip the signs over and fill the holes with caulking on the back side and then push it down into those holes. Then I let them dry overnight and remove the tape. This keeps the front of my signs clean and makes that caulking smooth and flush with the front of my signs. Now I'm going to paint one of my bunnies with a color called Caribbean, one with a color called Diva Pink, and one with a color called Lilac Mist. Now first I'm going to make a wash using each of these colors for my bunnies. To make a wash, I just add a bit of water to my paint and then mix it up. After brushing my wash over the bunny, I realized I added too much water, so I add more paint to my wash and then I brush the wash over the bunny again. Now that I am happy with that aqua hue that the wash gave my bunny, I am going to take that same paint color, but not watered down, and dry brush it onto my bunny in certain areas. Then I am going to mix some white paint with the Caribbean color and dry brush that color over my bunny. I make sure to get that lighter shade of aqua over the area where the holes were because I think that lighter color camouflages the holes a little bit better. I repeat the same process with the other 2 bunnies using the pink and purple colors. One thing I ended up doing differently with the purple bunny though is that I ended up using 2 different purple colors instead of 1. The reason I did this is that after I used that Lilac Mist purple wash on my bunny, I realized that it was too light of a shade for the dry brushing. So for the dry brushing on the purple bunny, I ended up using this petunia purple color. For the pink bunny, I just used that one color for the entire process like I did with the aqua colored bunny. Now I use my cutting mat to line up my 3 bunnies so I can glue them together. For the outer 2 bunnies, I line the bottom of their feet up with that bottom line on my mat. And for the center bunny, I line the bottom of his feet up with the bottom of the mat. Now I'm going to use a pencil to trace underneath that center bunny onto the back 2 bunnies so that I know where to put my glue. I don't know if you can tell by the video, but I am not tracing the edge of the bunny, but I am going underneath that bunny with my pencil because I do not want to see any of the pencil lines. Now I just take some Star-Bond super glue and put it on those areas that I marked off with a pencil. And then I carefully place that center bunny on top of the back two bunnies. What I love about this Star-Bond glue is that it dries in like less than a minute. And no, I'm not sponsored, I just really like this glue. Now that my bunnies are glued together, I went into my Silhouette Design Studio and I designed this hippity hoppity decal for that center bunny. I made my decal to fit into a 4x4 area to fit my bunny. And now I'm just going to use transfer tape and parchment paper to attach my decal to my bunny. And then at this point I realized I should not have plugged those two outermost holes on my sign because I need those to attach my hanger. So I'm just going to use a screwdriver to remake those holes. And now I want each of my bunnies to have a big fluffy tail, so I'm going to use my Clover pom-pom maker to make the tails. Dollar Tree also sells a pom-pom maker just like the Clover one. To make a pom-pom, you'll want to open up one end of your pom-pom maker and start wrapping your yarn around it, being sure to keep your yarn in that center area only. The more yarn you wrap around it, the fuller your pom-pom will be. Once your first side is full, you'll want to close that side back up and then open the other side of your pom-pom maker. Don't cut your piece of yarn, just pull it over to the second side and continue wrapping until your second side is nice and full. Once the second side is full, close it up and then cut that end of your yarn. Now I take a pair of scissors and cut right down the center of my wrapped yarn on both sides. And then I'll take another piece of yarn and I'm going to wrap it around that center area of my pom-pom maker. You'll see a little gap and that is where you want your piece of yarn to go. And then you'll pull your yarn tight and tie it into a knot. I tie 3 knots just to be safe. Now you just open back up both of those rainbow shaped sides of the pom-pom maker and then pull the pom-pom maker apart at the center. And then you can just clean it up a bit with a pair of scissors. Now, at this point, I decide my pom-pom is just a little bit too big for my bunnies, so I repeat this whole process with a slightly smaller pom-pom maker. And I will make 3 total pom-poms of this new size. Now I'm going to use my hot glue gun to attach my tails to my bunny. At this point, all we need to do is make a hanger for the bunny sign. And I'm going to use this 2-toned jute twine that I got at Dollar Tree last summer to make the hanger for my bunnies. So I just thread the twine through the holes to the back and tie a couple of knots and this project is complete. Let me know what you guys think of this project. going to be using this cross wreath form from Dollar Tree, this greenery that I got from Michael's, this mixed greenery that I found at Walmart, and these roses and freesia that I got from the Dollar Tree. First, I used the mixed greenery from Walmart and I cut all the stems apart. Then I am going to use some floral wire to attach some of the stems to the wreath form. I just weave the wire around the greenery stem and one of the middle bars on the wreath form. And then I will cut away the rest of the stem that I don't need. Then I will repeat this process on all sides of the wreath form. And let me just say that I don't generally make wreaths, so there might be a better way to do this, but this is the method that I came up with. If anyone has a better or easier way to do this, please share with me in the comments section below. Okay, so now that I have added all of those matching stems, I'm going to add in these stems that have the purple leaves and the little white flowers on them. And I will attach those to the other center wires on the form that I have not already used. And next, and I should have actually done this first, but I was just winging it with this whole wreath. But if you want to make something like this, I would do this step first. But anyways, for this step, I'm going to use the greenery that I found at Michael's and attach it to all the outer bars on the wreath form with that floral wire. And then I'm going to just continue to fill in the center bars with the rest of the mixed greenery that I got from Walmart. And now that the wreath form is nice and full and covered with all the greenery, I'm going to add in my flowers. First, I'm going to add in my freesia flowers, leaving a space between each one of them for those purple roses. The way I add the freesia in is to push the stems through to the back of the wreath and then attach it to one of the wreath bars with that floral wire. Then when I add in the roses, I will bend the wires to make them easier to attach to the wreath bars. Then the last step is to make a bow for my wreath. For the bow, first I will be using this light purple ribbon that I got from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to make an 18-inch tail and then form a loop and pinch the ends of the loop together. Then I will make a loop on the opposite side the same size as the first loop. I'm going to repeat these steps, making 2 loops on each side, and then temporarily hold my bow together using a clothespin and leaving a second 18-inch tail. Then I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the light purple ribbon with this gold ribbon that I got at Walmart. And now I'm going to make a third bow with this darker purple ribbon that I got at Walmart, repeating all of the steps that I made with the first 2 bows, except I will make 3 loops on each side of this bow instead of 2 like I did with the other ones. Now I'm going to attach all 3 sections of my bow together using a zip tie, putting the light purple section in the back, then the gold ribbon on top of that, and then finally the darker purple on the top. And before I tighten the zip tie all the way, I'm going to thread a piece of floral wire through the back. And now I'm sorry, but I forgot to record this step. But I thread the wire on the bow through that center of the wreath and then wind the wire around the center bars on the wreath. And now the wreath is complete, and I will hang it on this 36-inch wreath easel stand that I found at Hobby Lobby for about $6. Using these wooden summer stickers and 3 of these wood blocks that I got from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to take one of the round fruit stickers and turn it to the back side and draw a beach ball on it. Now I'm going to paint that ball using the color Jack-O-Lantern mixed with white, the color Diva Pink mixed with white, the color Key West, and the color white. Then I'm going to paint the pineapple with the colors Parakeet and Bright Yellow. And then I will also be using a palm tree, but it's already painted for me, so I don't need to paint that one. And now I'm going to paint one of the wooden blocks in the color Jack-O-Lantern, one in the color Diva Pink, and one in the color Aquamarine. Then I went to the Silhouette Design Store and found this palm leaf image and made it into a stencil for my pink block. I'm going to stick the palm leaves on one side of the block and paint over them with that Diva Pink. And then I'm going to mix some more Diva Pink with the color white and paint over the leaves again. Then when the paint is dry, I will remove the stencil leaves from the block, revealing the darker pink leaves on the block. Then I repeat this process on 5 of the 6 sides of my block. I don't paint the 6th side because it's going to be on the bottom of the block and you're not going to be able to see it. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the orange block, except I made a striped stencil for the orange block. Then I will do the same thing with the aquamarine block, but with polka dots. And for my second color, I will be using the color Caribbean. Now I will glue the wooden stickers to the fronts of each of my blocks using Starbond super glue. And now this project is complete. I'll be using a scrap piece of wood that measures about 5.5 by 5.5 by 3/4 inches. I'm going to paint this sign first using white chalk paint. Then I went to Silhouette Design Store and I found this summer decal. I sized it to fit on my sign and then cut it out on stencil vinyl with my Silhouette Cameo 4. Then I used transfer tape and parchment paper to attach the stencils to my sign. Then I cut out some thin strips on stencil vinyl with my Silhouette, and I am going to use them to make sections on my sign about the same width as each other. And then I'm going to tape off the sides of my sign with painter's tape. going to paint over my stencil with white paint first to seal in the edges. And then I chose 6 colors to paint each section of my sign. I'm going to paint the top section with Diva Pink. The next section with the color Jack-o'-lantern. The third section with the color Bright Yellow. The fourth section with the color Caribbean. The fifth section with the color Aquamarine. And the sixth section with the color Key West. Once all my colors have dried, I will remove the painter's tape and the stencils, and this project is complete. I will be using this wooden cross that I got from the Dollar Tree and this sign that I found at Goodwill. The first thing I'm going to do is fill that hole on the cross. To do that, I'm just going to fill it with hot glue and let the glue cool. While the glue is cooling, I am going to start taping off the frame on my sign because I want to leave the frame as it is. Now that the hot glue has hardened, I am just going to use a razor blade to scrape off any excess so that the glue is flush with the cross. Now I am taking the color Burnt Umber and I am painting around the edges of my sign and also in the grooves on the sign. When that brown color has dried, I'm going to paint the sign with white chalk paint. I'm going to go heavier with the white paint where I didn't paint the brown, and a little bit lighter around the edges where the brown is, and also try not to get any of the white paint in the grooves on the sign. I'm doing this because I want my sign to look a little bit aged, and I want some of that brown to show through. After painting about 6 coats of the white, I realized I should have either primed my sign or sanded it before painting because the wording on the original sign kept bleeding through the white. I didn't want to start all over again, so I decided to try painting on a coat of Mod Podge and then painting over the Mod Podge once it was dry and see if that helped prevent the bleed through. It did help, but then my paint cracked a little bit. But I was okay with that because I was going for the age look anyways. Now I was thinking it would be cool to have the wording of the Star Spangled Banner in the background. So I found the lyrics, sized them to fit on my sign, and used my silhouette cutting machine to cut them out on stencil vinyl. And then I'm going to use transfer tape and parchment paper to attach the stencil to my sign. Then once it's attached, I will peel away the transfer tape. Now I'm going to take that burnt umber color again, and I'm going to do a heavy dry brushing over my stencil because I want the wording to look aged, but I don't want to have to worry about sanding it later. So my solution for that was to just dry brush so that the paint is darker in some areas and lighter in others. Then once I am happy with the coverage and the paint has dried, I peel away the stencil and also the tape that was protecting my frame. The tape was peeling up some of my paint around the edge of my sign, so I'm just going to run an X-Acto knife between the edge of the tape and the frame to prevent any more of that happening. Now that the base for my sign is complete, I'm going to work on the cross. I want the cross to look like a waving flag, so I'm just going to draw on some wavy lines to serve as a guide for me when I'm painting. Now I'm going to use the color 2 Blue to paint the top portion of the cross. And then paint every other color below the blue paint with white paint. Then finally, I will use the color Red Apple to paint the remaining stripes on the cross. Now I'm going to add some shading to the flag. To do this, I'm going to mix the blue color with a tiny bit of black to make a darker shade of blue. And I will also be using some more of the original blue color that I already painted on the flag. I am going to be frequently dipping my brush in water to water down the paint some to make blending easier. I dip my brush in the darker blue color, then quickly dip it in the water, and then start painting that dark blue color along the edge of the blue color on the flag. Then I will dip my brush in the original blue color to blend out the darker color into the rest of the blue on the flag. And again, I keep dipping my brush into the water because I want to keep the paint wet so that the colors will blend together better. Now I'm going to be adding some shadowing to the white areas. So to do this, I'm going to be using the colors white and elephant gray. I'm dipping my brush in the gray paint, then the water, and then I paint the watered down gray along the edge of the white paint on the flag. Then I dip my brush in the white paint to blend the gray out, staying away from the edge because I want that part to stay darker, and then I want the gray to get gradually lighter as I get towards the middle. Then I want the color to get darker again as I get towards the bottom edge of the white strip, so I will paint a line of gray along the bottom edge and then blend it out towards the middle like I did to the top. So what I want is for the edges of the stripes to be darker and then in the middle I want the color to be the lightest. So it looks like shadows along the edges and highlights in the center. I'm showing you more of my painting technique than I did in the past because some of you said you would like to see more of how I do it. So if you don't want to watch me painting a bunch, feel free to fast forward. Now I'm going to go back to the blue color because I didn't think the shadow was dark enough. So now I'm going to be using watered down black paint along the edge of the blue and then blending the black color into the blue. Also, I'd like to note that I get my brush wet, but I make sure that it's not too wet when painting right along the edge of the line because the paint color can run a bit into the other color where you don't want it. If this does happen though, no worries, you can just paint over it. I know this because I had that happen to me and I was able to just paint over it and it looked just fine. Now finally, I'm going to do the red stripes by mixing a tiny bit of black with the red color to make a darker shade of red, and then I also use the original red color to blend that darker color out. And I am just repeating the steps that I used with the other two colors. Darker color along the edge, then use water and the lighter color to blend it out and make the color get gradually lighter as it gets towards the center of the stripe. And then I make it get darker again as it gets towards the bottom of the stripe. Now that I'm done painting that cross, I'm going to use some of these little wooden stars that I got on Amazon to add stars to the flag. I'm going to tape a piece of painter's tape to my table, sticky side up, and then I stick my stars to the sticky tape. This makes it easier for me to paint my tiny stars. I'm going to paint the stars white first and then add some shading to them by using the same technique that I used on the flag. I paint a little bit of gray around the edges of the stars and then I blend it out with white paint and a little bit of water. When the stars have dried, I am going to glue them to the blue area on the cross with some Star Bond super glue. Then I used that same glue to glue the cross to my sign, and I also coated the entire sign with a clear matte protective spray. And this project is complete. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this project in the comments section. Using 2 of these hanging signs that I got from Dollar Tree. First I take the ribbons off of the 4th of July sign. And then I set those 3 small signs aside for now. And then I'm going to dry brush over the 3 sections of that blank sign. I'm going to dry brush the top section of the sign with red apple, the middle section with white, and the bottom section with Admiral blue. And I am making sure to leave some of that original brown on the sign showing through because I want the signs to look distressed and aged. Now that the paint has dried, I am using Star Bond super glue to attach each of the Dollar Tree mini signs to the fronts of the painted plaques. I'm going to put the blue sign on top of the red, the brown one on top of the white, and the white one on top of the blue. And then finally, I wanted to cover the hole on that little blue sign, so I made a small finger bow and I'm using hot glue to glue it over the hole. And that's it for this project. What do you guys think? I think this one is so cute. I love it. So I started with 4 types of these summer signs and I sanded off the pictures. And that's as far as I got last year. So now this year, I'm going to start the project back up by filling the holes on the signs. The way I'm doing this is filling the holes with hot glue and letting it dry. Then when it's dry, I scrape off the excess glue so that it's flush with my sign. Now there are going to be a lot of steps to this project, so I hope you'll stick with me because I think the end result is well worth it. So I am painting the 2 oval signs with white chalk paint. Then I take the arrow sign and I use a ruler and a pencil to section off the top of the arrow from the rest of the sign. Now I'm painting the bottom area of that arrow with the color red apple. Then I paint the top of the arrow with the color Admiral Blue. Now I'm using masking tape and painter's tape to mark off diagonal lines in the middle area of the arrow. First I put a piece of painter's tape at a diagonal, and then I use a piece of masking tape as a spacer. Then I put another piece of painter's tape down next to my spacer piece. Then I decided that I wanted the 2 little tails on the arrow to be a different color, so I block off that area with a piece of tape. Then I continue taping off the diagonal lines until that middle area is covered with tape. Now I'm going to paint over the tape first with that red paint to help with bleed through, and then when the red is dry, I go over it with white chalk paint. And then I peel off my tape. Then I put down another piece of tape to section off the tails, and then I paint the tails Admiral Blue. I decided the Admiral Blue looked too dark for this project, so I tape off the top of the arrow too. But I still painted the tails with the Admiral Blue first because I wanted both ends of the arrow to match. Then when the Admiral Blue is dry, I go back over the blue areas with the color 2 Blue. Then I peel away the tape again. Now with this sign, I decided I wasn't feeling the jaggedy edges, so I decided to cut them off. Now I am working on that skinnier oval sign, and I am using a pencil to draw a smaller oval so that I can paint on a border. Then I use the color red apple to paint on a red border. Now we're going to the fatter oval sign and I tape off one side. Then I paint over the edge of the tape with white paint, and then when the white paint is dry, I paint over the entire sectioned off area with the color 2 blue. Then I am taking that same 2 blue color and painting the rectangular sign. Now I'm going back to the fat oval sign and moving the tape to protect the blue area from the rest of the sign. Then I tape off stripes on the white area of the sign. Then again, I'm going to paint over my tape first with the base color of white. Then while I'm waiting for the white area to dry, I'm going to tape off a border on my rectangular sign. Now what I should have done is paint the sign white first, and then I could have just put my tape right along the edge of the sign and painted the center blue. But I didn't know that I wanted a border until after painting it blue, so I'm going to do things the hard way. So what I have to do now is use some small pieces of tape along the edge as spacers, and then mark off a smaller rectangle on the inside of those spacer pieces. And now I'm going to paint the border with white. But first I paint over the tape with blue to seal in those edges. And now while that blue dries, I'll paint on my red stripes on that fat oval sign. Then I peel away the tape and it looks like an American flag surfboard. That's not what I was going for, but that's what it looks like, so. Now I go back to that rectangular sign and I paint on that white border. And now we get to the wording for the signs. I picked a bunch of different fun fonts and I designed stencils for each of the sign in Silhouette Design Studio. The surfboard one is going to say Party in the USA. And since this one is multiple colors, I'm going to paint on a layer of Mod Podge to seal on the edges of the stencil. And here I'm just showing you all of my cute stencils and what each sign will say. Now that the Mod Podge is dry, I'm going to paint over my stencil with black paint and then peel away the stencil. Then I did the same thing with the fireworks sign. A layer of Mod Podge, let it dry, then black paint, then peel away the stencil. Then on these two signs, some of that paint peeled up with the stencil, maybe because of the layer of Mod Podge, I'm not sure. But it was going to drive me crazy if I left it looking like that, so I go in with a fine detail paintbrush and some more black paint and I clean up the messed up areas. Now for the other two signs, since the area with the stencil was over one color, I was able to paint over the stencils with the original base coat to seal in the edges. Then on the rectangular sign, I'm going to paint over my stencil with the color Blue Bonnet. Then I wait for it to dry and peel away the stencil. And then for the last sign, I'm going to paint over the area that says food with black paint. Then I use little pieces of tape to cover the bun, and I'm going to paint the hot dog in the color chestnut. Then for the bun, I'm mixing the colors chestnut, yellow, and orange to get a color that I think resembles the color of a hot dog bun. Then I just carefully paint over the bun area with that color, making sure not to get any of that color on the hot dog. Then I peel up the stencil. Now the hot dog has some mustard in the center that is still white. And we all know mustard is not white. So we have to paint it yellow. I saved a piece of my stencil with the hot dog, and I am going to stick that on the sign over the hot dog to make it easier for me to paint the mustard area. Side note, I'm not a mustard fan, so my hot dog would not have mustard, it would have ketchup. But I thought yellow would look cuter. So my question for you guys is, are you a ketchup on your hot dog or a mustard on your hot dog kind of person? Okay, so back to what I was doing here. So now I'm going to add on some star embellishments to each of my signs. I bought this pack of wooden stars on Amazon last year, and it came with 5 different sizes of these little stars. So first, I'm just trying to figure out what size stars I want for each sign and where I want them to go. And now I'm going to paint them. To make my life easier, I'm going to tape some painter's tape, sticky side up to my table, and then stick the stars to the tape so that they don't move around and I don't have to try and hold these tiny little things. I'm going to paint the stars that go on the flag surfboard and the firework white, the stars that go on the pool sign red, and the stars that go on the food sign in the colors 2 Blue and Blue Bonnet. And now that they are all painted and have dried, I am going to glue them onto my signs with the Star Bond super glue. Now we are almost done, guys. All we have to do is hot glue this white and tan jute twine that I got from Dollar Tree to the back of the signs for a hanger. And now I can finally say this project is complete. If you stuck with me to the end, let me know by commenting USA in the comments section. And let me know what you think of this project. I'm using 2 of these little tinsel-covered witch shoes that I got from the Dollar Tree. The first thing you want to do is remove all that shiny tinsel garland from each of the shoes. Now you'll be left with a plastic frame. Then I will be using this black chenille yarn that I also got from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to recover the shoes with the black chenille, and I am using a low temperature hot glue gun to help me attach the yarn. I just add a small amount of hot glue to the tip of the shoe to attach the yarn, and then I start wrapping the yarn around the shoe. And I'm going to add more hot glue every now and then wherever I think it needs it. Once I get to the inner part of the sole where it meets the heel, I cut the yarn and glue on the end. Then I start a new piece at the base of the heel. Then when I get to the top of the heel, I cut the yarn again and wrap it through the inner part of the frame. The reason I do this is so that I can get the yarn right up in that area between the sole of the shoe and the heel. Then when I get to the end of the cut piece of yarn, I glue it to the frame and start with a new piece again. I'm going to continue wrapping the yarn around the shoe frame until I get to the top of the shoe. When I get to the top of the frame, I'm going to add glue right along the top and glue the yarn over the frame so that the frame is not visible. Then I will glue on one more row just inside of the frame and cut my yarn and glue that end on the frame. Then I just repeat those same steps with the second shoe. Now I am taking a black zip tie and I'm going to zip tie the two shoes together. Then I'm going to use this glittery black spiderweb ribbon that I got from Dollar Tree, and I'm making a basic bow that will fit on the back of one of the shoes. Then I make a second smaller bow from this ribbon that I got from Walmart to go in the center of that black bow. I attach the smaller bow to the bigger bow with this pipe cleaner. Then I will cover the pipe cleaner with another piece of that purple ribbon by wrapping it around the center and gluing the ends to the back of the bow. Then I make a second bow for the other shoe, and I'm going to dovetail the ends of the black bow, and I'm going to cut the ends of the purple bow at an angle. Then I hot glue the bows to the backs of the shoes. Then I went into my Silhouette Design Studio and I cut out the words "If the shoe fits" in orange and white vinyl and a little witch silhouette in purple vinyl to fit on one of these little chalkboard tags that I got from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to attach the vinyl to the tag with transfer tape. Now I'm going to thread this purple ribbon that I got from Walmart through the hole on the tag and wrap it around where the zip tie is holding the shoes together and tie the ends into a knot. Then I move the knot behind the tag where it won't be visible. And now I'm making a little finger bow with some more of that purple ribbon, and I'm going to hot glue it to the tag where that hole is. And now this project is complete. I wanted to make a yardstick wreath, but I didn't have a yardstick, and I didn't want to buy one because I thought I could just use these scrap pieces left over from 2 Dollar Tree yardsticks. So I'm just going to attach the 2 yardsticks together using a paint stir stick. I put the 2 flat ends of the yardsticks up next to each other, and then I use hot glue and wood glue to glue that piece of the paint stir stick to both, making one long yardstick. Then I flip it over and I glue the other piece of that paint stir stick to the front so that it's nice and sturdy. Now I have this skull sign that I got from Dollar Tree, and I filled in that top hole with some caulking. And I'm going to hot glue on 4 pipe cleaners to the back of that sign down the center, and I also glue a piece of felt over the center of the pipe cleaner to make them more secure. Then I will drill a hole at one end of the stake so that I will be able to hang my wreath. Now to make the wreath, I will be attaching pipe cleaners to my yardstick. And I will attach 2 pipe cleaners to the top, making sure the tails of one pipe cleaner go to the right side and the tails of the other go to the left. To attach the pipe cleaners, I bend them in half, fold it around the stake, and then twist the 2 tails together, attaching it to the stake. And I am putting the first 2 right up against each other. Then I will move down my stake about 4 to 5 inches, and I will attach just 1 pipe cleaner, making the tails point out to the front. Then I move down another 4 to 5 inches and I attach another 2 pipe cleaners, making the tails go to the left and the right. Then I move down another 4 to 5 inches and attach just 1 pipe cleaner, pointing the tails to the front. And I will repeat this process until I reach the bottom of my stake. Now you can use deco mesh in the color of your choosing from Dollar Tree, and I am cutting it into 12-inch pieces. With each 12-inch piece, I start gathering in the center at one end until I get to the other end. Then I use a small clip to hold it together while I make another one, and then I will add that one to the clip with the first one. When I have 4 pieces of the pleated mesh bundled together, I am going to attach them to one of the pipe cleaners on the stake. So the top row will have a bundle of 4 on the right and the left side, then the next row will just have 1 bundle of 4 in the center, then the third row will have 2 sets of 4, 1 on the right and 1 on the left, and so on and so on. Now I'm using 4 different Halloween ribbons that I got from Dollar Tree, and I'm cutting them into 8-inch pieces. Then I'm going to dovetail the ends of each 8-inch piece. I'm stacking 4 8-inch pieces together and pinching them together in the center. Then I will attach the bundle of ribbon to one of the pipe cleaners on the stake. Now I'm taking the ends of that pipe cleaner and wrapping it around to the back and twisting it a couple more times and then cutting off the ends. Now, since I had used some of that black spiderweb ribbon in the previous craft, I didn't have as much as I did of the other 3 ribbons. So I'm not going to add ribbons to the rows with just one pipe cleaner in the center. And I will only add 3 ribbons to every other row of 2. But if you buy more ribbon, then of course you could use more ribbon than I did. Now I'm going to attach that skull sign to the center of my wreath with the pipe cleaners that I glued on it earlier. I figure out where I want my sign, and then I wrap the pipe cleaners to the back of the wreath and twist them together to secure it to the sign. Now I have these 2 signs that came from some hanging Dollar Tree signs, and I glued the pipe cleaners to the back of these so that I could attach these to my wreath as well. And I'm going to attach one to the top and one to the bottom the same way I did the skull sign. And here I decided I made the pipe cleaners too tight, so I'm just loosening them up a bit so that it sticks out as much as the skull sign. And now I want to cover up the area on the skull sign where I plugged the hole with the caulking, so I'm just going to glue a little spider that I got from Walmart over top of it. And then, so it doesn't look weird and out of place, I'm going to glue on a few more spiders here and there. Now for one final touch, I will be gluing some Halloween ornaments to my wreath. I add hot glue to the end of the ornament that used to have the hanger on it, and then I just push it into the mesh. Now I just need to add a piece of ribbon to the hole that I drilled into the top of the stake for hanging, and this project is complete. I'm using this hanging Halloween sign that I got from Dollar Tree and this sign that I found at Hobby Lobby on clearance for $3.74. The first thing I'm going to do is take apart the Halloween sign because I only wanted the haunted house for this project. Then I taped off the inside of the Hobby Lobby sign and I'm going to paint the frame with black chalk paint. I removed the painter's tape and now I'm going to paint the picture area of the sign with this color Purple Iris. I carefully painted around the edge of the picture area first with a small paintbrush so that I don't get any of that purple on the frame. Then I'm going to go back in with a larger brush and paint in the rest of that picture area. And this took me several coats to get the coverage I wanted. Now I cut out a large circle on stencil vinyl with my Silhouette Cameo 4 and I'm sticking that stencil to the sign. The first thing I'm going to do is paint over the edges of this circle with the color Purple Iris. What this is going to do is seal on the edges of my stencil so that I don't get any bleed through once I add my other color. When the purple is dry, I'm going to paint over the circle area with white chalk paint. Then when the white is dry, I'm going to go over it with the color yellow. The reason I painted it white first is that yellow has terrible coverage and I would be painting on coats of yellow for days if I didn't paint it white first. Once I have painted it yellow, I'm going to peel off the stencil and now I have a giant full moon. And now I wanted to create a glow effect around the moon. So I'm taking a small sponge brush and dipping it into the yellow paint and then into some water. Then I tap off some of the excess water and then sponge around the edge of the moon just outside of the moon. Adding the water makes the yellow more transparent and gives me the glow effect I wanted. Then I found this funny little saying and I cut it out with my Silhouette Cameo 4 on black vinyl. And I am using parchment paper and transfer tape to place and stick the vinyl to my sign. Using the parchment paper allows me to move the decal around before I actually stick it to the sign so that I can make sure I have the placement just right. Once I am happy with the placement, I just pull the parchment out from under the transfer tape. Now I'm using gel superglue from the Dollar Tree and hot glue to attach the haunted house to the sign. At this point, I thought it was still missing something, so I'm going to be using some of these little bats from these wood sticker packs that I got from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to paint 4 of them black and then use some Starbond super glue to glue them to the sign, and this project is complete. be making a bead garland. To make this, I'm using this bag of mixed beads that I found at Goodwill. I'm using 7 of the glass orange beads and 7 of these oblong beads from the bag. I will also be using some unfinished wood beads from Amazon, and I will be using 7 of each of 2 different sizes. I will be using one of these little wooden tags that I got from Hobby Lobby, and this wooden leaf cutout that I got from Amazon. I'm going to paint the wooden beads, and to make that easier, I am putting them on wooden skewers separated by a piece of masking tape. I'm going to paint the smaller beads with white chalk paint, and I am dipping my brush in a bit of water to water down my paint so that some of the wood will still show through. And then I'm going to paint the bigger beads in the color Dusk by Waverly. Now I'm using the color Harvest Orange to paint the wooden leaf cutout. When the paint on the leaf was dry, I used some Starbond super glue to glue it to the little wooden tag. Now it's time to assemble the garland. I put a piece of masking tape on the end of a piece of jute twine to make it easier to thread the twine through the beads, and I am alternating the colors of beads on the twine. Once all of the beads are threaded on the twine, I cut the twine and add another piece of that tape to the other end of the twine so that I can add the tag to the twine. Then I am going to tie the twine into 3 knots. I like to have a nice big knot on my garlands, and to do this, I add little dots of hot glue from a low temperature gun to the tied knot and then wrap some more of that twine around the knot. I keep adding little bits of glue and wrapping the twine until I'm happy with the size of the knot. Then I add a little bit of glue to the twine the beads are on and stick the leftover piece of the twine to it. Then, in order to hide the leftover piece of twine, I am going to thread it through my beads. And I add tiny bits of glue to the jute between every couple of beads to stick that leftover piece down. Once I have the leftover piece threaded through 4 or 5 beads, I cut off the end of the twine, and then I add some glue to that end, and then I stick that end to the longer piece of jute. And now for the other end of the garland, I'm going to make a tassel. To make a tassel, I am using this white and tan jute that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I wrap it around my hand about 20 to 25 times, and then I cut it away from the roll of jute. Then I cut another piece of jute, and I thread it through one end of the wrapped bundle of jute, and then I tie 3 knots. Then I am going to cut the opposite end of the bundle, making it into several pieces of jute twine that are tied together. Then I fold the pieces of twine in the opposite direction, and this will hide that knot I tied inside of my tassel. Now I'm going to cut another piece of jute and wrap it around my tassel about 1 inch down from the top, and then I tie it into 3 knots. To add the tassel to my garland, I thread the jute on the garland through the top of the tassel and tie the tassel to the garland. I tie 3 knots, and then I want to make the knot bigger like I did at the other end of the garland, so I'm going to repeat the same steps that I did on the other end. So I'm just adding a tiny bit of hot glue to that small dot, and then I start wrapping the leftover piece of jute around the knot. I keep adding more glue and continue wrapping until I'm happy with the size of the knot. Then I add glue to the jute on my garland and I stick the leftover piece to my main piece of jute. And I am going to hide that leftover piece by threading it through the beads and gluing it down every 1 or 2 beads. When I feel like I have threaded it through enough beads, I will cut off the rest of the jute and then glue that end down to my garland. Now to complete my tassel, I want to hide the knot that I made earlier. To hide that knot, I am going to wrap the 2 ends at the end of the knot around that area and glue them down. This way the knot is hidden and I have no weird loose ends. Now all that's left to do is clean up the ends of my tassel by cutting them all the same length, and once I have done that, this project is complete. I'm using this fall sign that I got from the Dollar Tree. This sign that I found at Hobby Lobby for $1.90. And some of these leaf cutouts from a pack that I got from Amazon. First, I took the 2 signs outside and sanded the pictures off of both of them. Then for the Hobby Lobby sign, I taped off the sides with painter's tape, and I am going to paint the top of the sign with the color Territorial Beige. Then I will use the Territorial Beige color and the color Light Mocha to paint my sign. I am blending the 2 colors together to create shadows and highlighted areas on the sign. To do this, I'm just using 1 brush and I dip it in 1 color and paint on the sign, and then immediately dip it into the second color and paint over the still wet paint on the sign to blend it out. I am pretending like I have sections to my sign and trying to make sure the highlighted areas will be more in the middle of the imaginary sections. Now I'm using my ruler, a fine detailed paintbrush, and the color Burnt Umber to lightly paint lines on my sign. I'm just lightly running my paintbrush with that burnt umber on it along the edge of the ruler. Then I take the color Coffee Bean with a stiff bristle brush and I attempt to dry brush the color over certain areas to create more shadow. but then I decide I don't like the way that this looks. So now I'm going to take the colors Coffee Bean and Territorial Beige and do the same wet brushing blending technique that I already did with the lighter colors. Then I decided to add in some more of that light mocha color as well, blending the three colors on my sign. And this time I am not worried about covering the very center of my sign because it will be covered up later with that Dollar Tree sign. And I am just playing around with the colors, making it darker in some areas and lighter in others. And now that I painted over my lines, I will need to paint them back on. This time I am mixing a little bit of black paint with that burnt umber since the sign is darker and I want the lines to be clearly visible. Now, if you remember, the Dollar Tree sign had a leaf popping off of the top of the sign. But now since I sanded the picture off, it doesn't make any sense anymore. So I'm just going to cut that little area off of the plaque shape. Then I'm going to fill in the holes on the plaque with some hot glue and then let the glue harden. Then I use a razor blade to scrape off the excess glue so the plaque is smooth. And now I'm going to paint that plaque with the color Ivory chalk paint. Once the plaque is dry, I'm going to glue it onto the front of the Hobby Lobby sign with some Star Bond super glue. Then I chose 4 different leaves from this leaf pack from Amazon, and I'm going to stain them using some antique wax. I brush the wax over the leaves with a paintbrush, and then I wipe off the excess with a baby wipe. Then I went into my Silhouette Design Studio and I designed this decal to fit on the Dollar Tree plaque, and then I used my Cameo 4 to cut it out on matte black vinyl. And to apply the decal to the plaque, I am just going to use transfer tape and parchment paper. I place the transfer tape on top of the parchment paper, leaving a small area of the tape exposed. This allows me to move the decal around on my sign until I get it placed the way I want it. Then once I like the placement, I push the exposed area of the tape down to the sign. Then I am able to remove the parchment paper without the decal moving on me, and I stick the rest of the decal down to my sign, and then remove the transfer tape. And then for the final step, I will use Star Bond super glue to glue the leaves down where I think they look good, and this project is complete. What do you guys think? I love this one. I think it turned out so beautiful. Using this fall metal pail that I got from the Dollar Tree and this round wooden plaque that I got from Walmart for $1. I traced the pail onto a piece of felt 3 times and then I cut out those 3 circles, but I only end up needing 2 of the circles for this project. The bottom of the pail has a raised lip on it, and I want to fill up that empty space, so I hot glue those 2 circles of felt to the bottom of the pail. Then I am going to center and trace the pail onto the round wood plaque. Now I know where to put my glue so that I can hot glue the pail to the wooden plaque. Filling up the empty space on the pail with the felt made it so that I had more surface area for the glue to adhere the pail to the plaque. Now I'm going to fill up the pail with some grocery bags, and then I will cover the top of the pail with some painter's tape. Then I flip the pail upside down and use an X-Acto knife to cut off the excess tape around the top of the pail. Now that I have the inside of the pail protected, I am going to take this outside and paint it with some black matte spray paint. And just a little FYI, be careful to make sure you don't have any hot glue strands sticking to your pail before painting. Mine did, and I didn't realize it until after painting, but fortunately they were on the back side of the pail. Can you tell what we're making yet? If you thought snowman hat, you're right. Now I'm taking some styrofoam balls in 3 different sizes that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I will be covering them with this chunky Mickey yarn that I got at Walmart. To do this, I am using a low temperature hot glue gun. I start by putting a small amount of hot glue on the ball and then sticking the end of the yarn to the hot glue. And I am using this rubber tip brush that I got from Amazon to push the yarn into the hot glue. Then I start adding glue around that end piece of yarn, going in a spiral and sticking the yarn into the hot glue as I go. Oh, and just another little FYI, I was recently at Dollar Tree and they are selling ornaments this year that look just like these yarn-covered balls will look once I am finished. The ones at Dollar Tree look about the same size as the middle-sized balls that I am using. So if you want to save yourself this step, you could just buy the ones at the Dollar Tree. But anyways, I'm just going to keep adding glue and sticking the yarn down until the entire ball is covered in yarn. When I get to the other side of the ball, I will just cut the yarn and then just push that new end down into the hot glue. And I ended up making 2 of the larger balls, 3 of the mid-sized balls, and 2 of the smallest balls for this project. Now I'm going to be decorating the hat. I'm using this value ribbon that I got for 50% off from Hobby Lobby, this greenery that I pulled off of one of these ornaments from the Dollar Tree, these berries that I got from Dollar Tree, and these 2 small pine cones that I pulled off of another Christmas decoration that I already had on hand. I'm going to wrap the ribbon around the bottom of the hat and hot glue the ends to the back. I have 4 little pieces of this Christmas tree greenery, and I'm going to glue 2 right on top of each other, going in one direction on the hat, and then 2 more stacked on top of each other, going in the opposite direction of the first 2. The berries come in little bunches of 3, and I am taking one of them and folding the wires in half to make them shorter, and then just twisting the wires together. Then I hot glue the twisted wires to the hat in between the 2 sections of greenery. Now I'm gluing on the little pine cones. Then I decided I wanted a couple more berries, so I cut 2 off of their wires and I hot glue them to the hat on either side of the berries that are already on the hat. At this point you could be done, but I thought it looked a little plain, so I decided to make my snowballs into snowman heads. I drew and cut out a carrot shape onto a piece of paper, and I am using it as a template to cut out the shape from orange felt. After cutting 2 at this size for the larger 2 balls, I make the template a bit smaller, and then I cut out 3 smaller carrot shapes. And I will just be making the bigger and the mid-sized snowballs into snowman and leaving the smallest snowballs plain. Now I'm cutting out some circular shapes from black felt for the eyes. I'm not worried about them being perfectly round because I figured if you're making a real snowman and using rocks or coal, they wouldn't be perfectly round either. And now that I have the eyes and noses cut out, I'm going to hot glue them onto the snowballs. For the mouth, I'm using these black beads that I got years ago from Walmart. I'm using a low temperature hot glue gun and just adding a tiny bit of glue to the beads and then sticking them onto the snowballs below the nose in the shape of a smile. Then I wanted to give the snowman little rosy cheeks, so I borrowed my son's chalk. I take the cotton swab and rub it over the chalk and then brush it onto the balls in a circular shape. I wanted to add a little more detail to the eyes and the noses, so for the eyes I am dipping the end of the handle of a paintbrush into white chalk paint and then pressing it onto the eyes. For the noses, I am using some cinnamon colored paint and a small paintbrush to outline the carrots. I also add a few random lines pointing up and down to look like the bends on a carrot. Once the paint is dry, I will fill the hat with the snowman heads, and this project is complete. What do you guys think? I just love the way that this one turned out. I'm using 2 car cloths from the Dollar Tree, a 9-inch styrofoam ball, a snowman head ornament from the Dollar Tree, this Christmas booties ornament from the Dollar Tree, and a pair of red and white striped socks. First, I am going to mark a spot on the styrofoam ball. Then I measure the circumference of the ball and then mark another line halfway across the ball from the first line that I marked. Then I make an indentation all around the ball matching up the 2 lines that I marked. This way I can easily find the center of the ball. Now I'm going to take my first car cloth and glue it to 1/2 of the ball. And this cloth has already been cut because I used it for some other project in the past. I'm going to start by putting some hot glue in the indentation and then sticking the cloth to the glue. I started out working with a high temperature glue gun, but I end up switching to a low temperature glue gun in just a minute since I am working with styrofoam. To make sure I don't get any wrinkles in my cloth when sticking it to the ball, I am stretching the cloth as I stick it down to the glue. And again, this helps to prevent me from getting any big wrinkles along that glue line. So I'm applying the glue to the indentation line and then stretching the fabric and sticking it down. Once I have the first cloth glued to the first side of the ball, I will cut away all the excess cloth. Now I'm using a 12-inch wooden dowel that came in a pack of multiple sizes, and I am using the largest one that came in that pack. I'm going to mark the center of the dowel, and then I use my miter shears to cut the dowel in half. And then I will cut the hanger off of the booty ornament. Now I'm going to cut the heel and toe area off of one of the socks and then cut the top area of the sock into 2 equal sized pieces. Then you want to turn each piece inside out and put a line of hot glue along the unfinished edge and then stick the 2 edges together. Let the glue dry and then turn the pieces right side out. Now I'm going to take the two 6-inch dowels and glue them into the center of each booty. To give the booties some weight, I will fill each one with these glass gems that you can find at the Dollar Tree. Then I will cover the two dowels with the sock halves. To cover up the open tops of the booties, I will use this piece of white fur that I had cut off of a Santa hat from the Dollar Tree for a previous project. I wrap the fur around the booty to see how long of a piece I need and then cut it. Then I will cut the second piece to the same length. Before covering the shoes with the fur, I will cut off the little bows off of the booties. Now I fold the fur piece in half with the fur sides touching, and then put a line of hot glue along the edge to stick the two ends together. I'll do the same thing with the second piece of fur, and when the glue has cooled, I will turn the fur right side out. Then I put the fur over the shoe with the finished edge at the bottom and the unfinished edge at the top. Then I tuck the top of the fur down into the shoe and line up the bottom edge with the bottom edge of the fur that was already on the shoe. Then to make sure the fur stays put, I will put dots of hot glue on the back, sides, and front and stick the new piece of fur down to the shoe. Then I glue the bow that I cut off of the booties back onto the newly covered shoe. And now we have two snowman legs. Before covering the second side of the styrofoam ball with fur, I want to mark where the legs will go. So I put the legs next to each other and then press the ball onto the legs, marking the holes in the ball where the legs will eventually go. Now I can cover the second side of the ball with the second car cloth, repeating the same steps that I made with the first side of the ball. Add some glue, stick the cloth down, and then start adding more glue and sticking more of the cloth down, being sure to stretch the cloth as I go. And I skip adding glue over the holes that I made for the legs. When I finish covering the second side, I will cut away the excess cloth. Then I want to clean up the edges of the fur on the snowman, so I'm just cutting the fur down as closely as I can to the ball. Now I can attach the legs. I fill the hole on the ball with hot glue and then push the leg into the hole. Then I fill the other hole with hot glue and then I push the body down onto the second leg. Now to make sure his little leg warmers stay up, I am adding glue to the inside edge of the warmers in the front and the back and sticking them to the snowman's body. To add the head, I will take an X-Acto knife and cut an opening at the top of the body in the fur, and then push the dowel down into the body where I cut that opening. Then I place the snowman head next to the dowel and mark the dowel where it needs to be cut. I pull the dowel out and cut it down to size. Then I add hot glue to the bottom of the dowel and then push it down into the hole. Now I'm going to push the head down onto the dowel and then pull it back off so I can add hot glue, and then I push it back onto the body. Now this guy needs some arms. For the arms, I am using the second sock. I cut the heel and toe area off of the sock and then cut the remaining piece in half. Then I glue the unfinished edges of the pieces together with the right sides touching and then turn them right side out once the glue has cooled. Now I'm taking 2 large pom-poms and I'm going to wrap some of that remaining car cloth around each one. I bunch the ends of the cloth together and tie some embroidery thread around the bunched up area and then cut off the excess fabric. These will be the snowman's hands. Now I'm trying to figure out how to attach his hands to his arms. First I take a piece of felt and I glue one of the ends and then roll the rest of it up and then stuff it into the sock sleeve. Then I cut down the felt so that it will fit inside of the sleeve. But then I decide that I want to wrap the felt around the top of the hand and glue the bottom edge of the felt to the hand as I am wrapping it so that there is no gap in between the hand and the felt arm. I cut the arm down to 3 inches, but I think I should have made it a little longer so it filled out more of the sleeve. So if you make this, you might want to make yours a little bit longer than I did. Then I stuff the arms and the hands into the sleeves. Now I'm going to make the snowman scarf. I had this fat quarter in my stash that I had got from Walmart, and I thought it would be cute for the snowman to have a scarf with snowmen on it. To make the scarf, I'm folding the fabric in 3 inches, and then I fold it over 2 more times. Then I end up unfolding it 1 time, and I'm going to make my cut about 1 inch away from the fold. I'm going to run a line of hot glue along the cut edge and then glue it to the folded fabric, and this will be the back side of the scarf. Now before adding the scarf, I need to attach the snowman's arms. I am going to glue the top edge of the sleeve to the snowman where his head and body meet, and then I will add more glue to close up the top of the sleeve. Then I will add some more glue to the inside of the arm and then position it on the body the way that I want it and then stick it down. And then I repeat the same steps with the other arm. For the tails of the scarf, I am taking another piece of snowman fabric and folding it over 2 inches this time. I folded it over twice, and then I cut about 1 inch away from the folded fabric, and then I'll run a line of hot glue along the edge and then stick it to the folded fabric. I'm going to fold this finished piece of fabric in half unevenly, making one side about 1 inch longer than the other, and then cut it where I folded it. Then I will finish off the ends of the 2 tails by folding them under and gluing them. Now I'm taking the larger 3-inch wide scarf piece that I made earlier and wrapping it around the snowman's neck and then cutting it shorter. Before gluing the main scarf piece around his neck, I am going to glue on the longer of the two scarf tails. I want the scarf to look like it has been tied around his neck, so I'm going to have one tail underneath the main piece and the other coming up and over the main piece. I'm going to pinch the tail piece in half and glue it at the center to make a fold in the tail so that it's not so flat. Then I am going to glue the top edge of the tail closed. Then I will glue the tail to the snowman right where his body and head meet and right over the top edge of the arm. Now I'm closing up the ends of the neck piece. I don't want the hot glue to make the ends stiff and rigid, so right after I press the ends together and before the glue hardens, I am scrunching up the ends while the glue cools. I wrap the scarf around the snowman's neck and then fold the unfinished edge under and then glue it so that the unfinished edges will point in towards the neck. Then I scrunch the scarf while the glue is cooling. Then I will just glue the scarf down to the snowman in a couple of spots in the back. Now I want to add the second scarf tail. I pinch it together at the top and glue to make a fold, and then glue the top edges together. To add this tail to the scarf, I will run a line of hot glue on the underside top edge of the scarf, then fold it over the top neck piece of the scarf and then glue it on the inside of the neck piece. Now for the final step, I am just going to glue the tails down to the snowman in a few spots so they will stay put. Now that I have done that, I can finally say that this project is complete. I know this project was kind of long, but I think the result was well worth all of the steps because I think he is absolutely adorable. If you guys stuck with me through this entire project, leave me a little snowman emoji in the comments section. I'm using a black 8x10 canvas from the Dollar Tree. The first thing I am going to do is sketch out a basic snowman shape with a piece of chalk, and then some little snow hills right below him. I'm going to use some white chalk paint to fill in the two balls of the snowman's body. Then I will put some white paint and some light blue paint on a plate. I am dipping my paintbrush into the white paint and adding it to the snowman. Then I'll dip that same brush into the light blue paint and add it to the same area on the snowman that I just added the white. Then I add more white to that same area and start blending the blue out to the center of the snowman. I will keep adding and playing with the two colors, and I am trying to focus the majority of the blue color on the right side of the snowman and gradually blend it out with the white. This will make the snowman look like he has a shadow on his right side and will make him appear less flat and give him more dimension. I also make sure to get some of the blue around the bottom of his head so that it looks like it's a separate ball from the body. I'll add some white paint over the snowy hills and then add some blue to those as well to create more shadows. And just don't be afraid to play with the colors. If you add too much blue, you can always add more white to lighten it back up. Now I'm going to add just a little bit of gray to give the snow even more shadows. I'm adding just a little bit of gray to the snowman and mainly focusing on the outer edges on the right side. And I will also add a bit to the top area of his head, right below where his hat will eventually be, so that it looks like the hat is casting a shadow on the top of his face, and then a little bit of gray to the snowy hills as well. Now that I'm happy with the way that the snowman's body looks, I'm going to paint the snowman's hat black. I fill the brim in with black paint, and then add some gray paint into the black paint at the top of the brim to create a highlight on the brim. After filling in the main part of the hat with black, I am blending in the gray. I put most of the gray on the sides of the hat because that is where I want to focus the majority of the highlights. And then I blend out the gray towards the center of the hat with the black. And when I am adding the gray to the hat, I am making sure to curve my lines to make sure that the hat looks more rounded and dimensional. Then, to make the hat look like some snow has fallen on it, I am adding in some white paint. Now I'm taking the color Red Apple by Apple Barrel to paint on the scarf and a ribbon around the hat. I paint on one of the tails of the scarf, and then I will use the color Brown Oxide to paint on some arms. For the arms, I am just painting on some crooked lines to look like a branch from a tree. Once I have the arms painted, I will take the color black and start adding a bit to the bottom sides of the arms and fingers, and then blending it out with some more of the brown to create some shadow on the arms. Now that the arms have been added, I will add a second scarf tail. I want this tail to look like it's behind the arm, so I paint part of it above the arm and the other part below the arm. Then, to create shadow on the scarf, I add black paint to the bottom areas of the scarf and then blend it out towards the center with some more red paint. Then I will add some more black to the bottom area of the hat. And then some more white to the top of the hat to look like snow has fallen on it. I add some highlights to the red areas by adding some white to the top parts and then blending it out with the red paint. The key to blending the paint colors is to keep your paint wet. You add the highlight or shadow color and then add the main color to it while the highlight or shadow color is still wet. Now I want the arms to look like they have snow on them, so I'm adding a bit of the white paint to the top sides of the arms. And when I want the paint to look more like snow instead of just highlights, I'm not worried about blending it out like I do with the highlights. And then I will add some snow to the scarf and a bit more to the hat as well. Now I'm using some orange paint and painting on a cone shape to look like a carrot nose. And then some black paint to paint on some eyes and a mouth. Then I add some tiny white dots to the eyes and the mouth for highlights. Now I'm taking a darker shade of orange paint and blending it with the brown paint that I used for the arms to create a shadow on the bottom of the carrot nose. I paint a thin line of brown along the bottom of the carrot and then blend it with the orange and make curved lines going up towards the center of the carrot. Then for the top of the carrot, I will do the same thing, but with the lighter orange color and white instead of the darker colors. Now for the final step, I'm taking an old toothbrush, dipping it into water and then some white paint, and then flicking the watered down paint over the entire canvas by rubbing my thumb over the bristles on the toothbrush. Now this project is complete. What do you guys think? I'm using the leftover cardboard tube from Project 1 and cutting it down to 3 feet. Then I am taking a white and a red pool noodle from the Dollar Tree and cutting them in half. I'll tape one of the noodle pieces to the tube and spiral it around the tube as I'm taping it down. Then I am taking a pen and marking on the tube where I taped the noodle. Now I'm using the handle of a push broom to hold the cardboard tube for me. Then I will cover the entire tube in a layer of contact cement and also the cut sides of each pool noodle. Then you know the drill, we gotta wait 20 minutes for the cement to set up. Now after 20 minutes, I can stick the pool noodle pieces to the tube. I thought I was going to need all 4 pieces, but I only ended up needing 3. When attaching the first noodle, I am following that marked pin guideline that I made on the tube. Then with the second, I will use the first noodle as my guide, and with the third, I will just apply it to the remaining uncovered area on the tube. And this time I was smarter and I left the noodles longer on both sides of the cardboard tube. Once I have the noodles attached to the tube, I'm going to cut them down to line up with the ends of the tube. Now I want to use that remaining piece of the white noodle to put a piece around the top and the bottom of the pole. I measured around the pole and then I cut the noodle to that length. Don't do that. It makes the noodle too short. Instead, wrap the noodle around the pole and then cut it to the correct length. Now that I have 2 correctly sized pieces cut, I'm going to apply contact cement to the cut sides of the noodle, including the ends. Then I'll apply a layer of cement to the top and the bottom of the pole. Then we wait 20 minutes. Then I apply the rings to the top and the bottom of the pole. Now for the base of the pole, I'm using a scrap piece of 2x8 and 1x6 wood, and I cut them into squares. I'm gluing them together with wood glue, and then I attempt to use the nail gun to nail them together. I say attempt because only one of the nails went all the way through the wood, and then my husband had to hammer them the rest of the way down for me by hand. Now my husband is finding the center of the squares for me and then marking it. Now I'm using his drill press, fitted with a 3/4 inch drill bit, to drill about a 1.5 inch deep hole into the base. And then I'm going to use a broom handle from the Dollar Tree that has been cut shorter to go into the hole in the base. Now I'm going to use some caulking to fill the holes on the base that I made with the nails. I let the caulking dry for about 30 minutes and then scrape and sand off the excess caulking. Then I will paint the entire base with white paint. Then when the paint is dry, I coated the entire thing with clear gloss top coat. Now I'm going to take that broom handle and glue it into the hole on the base with Starbond super glue. And then I put the North Pole over the handle. I cut a circle of felt to fit on the inner area at the top of the pole, and then I mark on the felt where that center tube is, and then I cut that area out. I hot glue the felt to the pole, and then I cut a second piece and glue it on top of the first piece. I will be using a set of fairy lights from the Dollar Tree, so I need to make a spot for the battery pack to go. I mark on the noodles where I want to put it, and then I cut that spot out with an X-Acto knife. But since these noodles are thinner than the ones I used on the candle, the battery pack doesn't sit back far enough in them. So then I need to cut that spot out on the cardboard tube as well. And the pumpkin carving saw came in handy for this. Now that I have the battery pack situated, I will string the fairy lights inside of a large clear ornament that I got from the Dollar Tree. And then I will place the ornament in the hole on the top of the North Pole. To hold the ornament in place, I add hot glue around the base of it. Now I want to dress the pole up a bit. So I take a piece of garland that I got from the Dollar Tree and I wrap it around the base of the globe twice. I cut it and then I hot glue the ends to the pole. Oh, and I forgot to mention, every time that I use hot glue in this video, it's a low temperature hot glue gun so I don't melt the noodles. Then I made a bow with red ribbon from the Dollar Tree and green ribbon from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to hot glue it to the front of the pole at the base of the globe. And once I've done that, this project is complete. If you enjoyed this DIY, please leave me a Santa emoji in the comments section. I'll be using 2 of these 30-inch LED lawn decor candy canes that came from the Dollar Tree, and 2 white pool noodles that I also got from the Dollar Tree, and this red ribbon that I got from Michael's. First I measured the entire candy cane and it measured 37 inches. Then I added about 5 inches to that number and I cut the pool noodle to that length. I added 5 inches because I was afraid of it ending up being too short. Then I am going to thread the candy cane through the center of the cut pool noodle. I want to be able to reach the on-off switch on the candy cane, and as you can see, it's too long for me to do that. So I ended up cutting it down to 37.5 inches, and that seemed to be the perfect length for me to be able to reach that on-off switch. And what's cool is that in the dark, the lights on the original candy cane still shine through that white pool noodle. Now I want to attach the new candy canes that I made together. I put one on top of the other and then I mark the spot where they overlap. Then I used the pool noodle knife and an X-Acto knife to cut that section out of the one pool noodle. Before attaching the 2 candy canes together, I'm going to give them some stripes, and I'm using that red ribbon from Michael's to do this. I will use a low temperature glue gun to attach the ribbon to the noodle. I'll leave some ribbon hanging longer than the end of the candy cane because I want to be able to tuck that inside of the end of the noodle. The hardest part of the candy cane to cover is where it bends. For that section, I just kind of folded the ribbon here and there and glued it down so that I didn't get any bulging or bubbling in my ribbon when going around the bend. When I get to the cut section of the noodle, I will cut the ribbon and then glue the end down into the hole. Then I will start a new piece by gluing the end into the other side of the hole. You obviously don't need to include this step when covering the second candy cane. Then just continue to spiral and glue the ribbon down until you reach the bottom of the candy cane. When you get to the bottom, cut the ribbon leaving some excess, and then glue and tuck that extra ribbon into the bottom of the noodle. Now that both candy canes have their stripes, I'm going to attach them together with a zip tie. I tightened the zip tie as tight as I could, but I should have left it a little looser for a little longer, and you'll see why in a minute. Now to dress these up, I'm using some holiday berry picks that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I am just trying to tuck the stems into the zip tie. But I can't because I made it too tight. So I add another zip tie to the candy cane, leaving it looser this time, and I tuck the stems in, fanning them out at the top. The first zip tie is getting in my way, so I cut it off. Then I also tighten and cut the second zip tie to hold the floral picks in place, and then I cut the ends of the stem of the floral picks. Then I take another piece of that red ribbon and I fold it in half and hot glue it around the area with the zip tie. I made a bow with the red ribbon from Michaels and the green ribbon from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to hot glue it to the center of the candy canes. Then to add just a little bit more flair, I'm going to glue on a few red and silver ornaments in different sizes from Dollar Tree to that center area of the candy canes. To hang this, I just tied a piece of fishing line around the center area, leaving it a little loose so I can hang it on a hook. And once I have done that, this project is complete. If you guys like this project, please leave me a candy emoji in the comments section. Thank you for watching today's video. I hope some of your favorites from 2023 made it into the video, and if they did, I would love to hear what they were. I'm so excited to share many more DIYs with you in 2024, and if you're not already subscribed, I hope you will so we can craft some more together. Also, be sure to hit that bell notification so you will be notified every time I share a new video. If you have any ideas for projects you would like to see me try this year, be sure to share them with me in the comments section below. I hope you all had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!